wonderful and enjoyable life。我相信香港呢幾年來又克服好多困難，將來我有信心一定會克服所有嘅困難。
呢個老人家大半生都貢獻香港，佢離開政府之前嘅職位係布政司，退休之後依然心繫香港，有望留港終老。佢就係現年84歲嘅鍾逸傑爵士，好多人都會尊稱佢做 Sir David。佢喺香港已經54年，比唔少香港人可能更加熟悉香港。呢位嚟自英國嘅前高官係點樣嚟到佢嘅第二故鄉嘅呢？鍾逸傑生於英國一個工匠家庭，17歲就喺船務公司度做學徒，4年之間周遊印度同埋泰國等嘅國家，亞洲文化令佢大開眼界。完成學業之後，27歲嘅鍾逸傑決定到亞洲做嘢，首先係到英國喺馬來西亞嘅殖民地度做地方官。
New Year's Day 1954 saw me arriving in Kuala Lumpur, and I stayed in Kuala Lumpur for a couple of years learning Hokkien, Fujianhua, and then was a district officer in the settlement of Malacca。
馬來西亞獨立之後，30歲嘅鍾逸傑喺非洲同埋香港之間選擇咗後者，係佢人生其中一個最重要嘅決定。
And obviously, because I was more familiar with Hong Kong than with Africa, since I'd already learnt Fujian or Hokkien, so I came to Hong Kong. So I arrived in Hong Kong in 1957, worked for 2 years in the Commerce and Industry Department。
鍾逸傑有地方行政嘅經驗，好快就調任荃灣理民官。
One day, when I was staying in one of the bungalows on Sunset Peak on Lantau Island, a friend who was flying round Lantau in a small aeroplane, a tiger moth, dropped a message down to me, telling me, "You've been posted to Chuen Wan as district officer." So when I came down from Sunset Peak, I was posted to district officer Chuen Wan. That was in 1959.
鍾逸傑其後曾經調任離島，而由1962年起出任元朗理民官嘅5年，係佢人生最快樂嘅時光之一。但係呢一段日子開始得一啲都唔容易。
There was a very serious flood in Yuen Long. A flood control scheme was developed, and you can see these big river channels running through the middle of Yuen Long now. But that meant moving. This is my first experience of having to move villages and for public works, villages and squatter development and so on, temporary housing, rehousing people. It was a baptism of fire, really. Fortunately, I survived the fire, and I think some of the happiest years of my life were spent in Yuen Long. So much so that I'm still friends with the people there, Jungsuk, Hitsuk, and so on.
喺政府賠償方案等嘅配合之下，拆遷工程冇令到鍾逸傑同元朗嘅居民對立起嚟，反而成為咗朋友。鍾逸傑後嚟亦都促成興建元朗大球場，元朗足球隊更加係當年嘅球壇勁旅。
I hope we helped a lot of people, and I mean we had a football team which was very famous, the Farmers football team, Yuen Long, and we got on with community building.
喺多個地區出任理民官大約10年，鍾逸傑累積咗大量嘅經驗同人脈嘅網絡。佢後嚟調任副新界民政處長、首席助理副政司。到1973年，46歲嘅鍾逸傑獲委任為新界政務司，管理整個新界嘅事務。佢嘅下屬包括咗今日嘅特首，當年係沙田理民官嘅曾蔭權。 大埔元洲仔吐露港海邊呢座超過110年歷史嘅前新界政務司官邸，係香港嘅法定古蹟。鍾逸傑喺呢一度住過12年。呢度以前係一個小島，只係得一條海堤同大埔連接。呢一個自成一國嘅世外桃源，冇令到鍾逸傑忘記當年有好多香港人仍然住喺寮屋或者徙置區。佢任內其中一項最重要嘅任務，就係參與落實港督麥理浩嘅10年建屋計劃，發展屯門、沙田同埋大埔等嘅新市鎮。
Well, MacLehose was one of our greatest governors, I think, and started a great many programs to fight crime, fight corruption, fight the dirt and pollution of the city, and also the housing program. And he made one of those dramatic statements which he was fond of making. And he said that the shortage of housing was the biggest single source of unhappiness in Hong Kong. And I personally believe that that's still a source of great unhappiness in Hong Kong today.
舊官邸近呢個花園原本係一片草地，鍾逸傑以前種下好多樹苗，今日重返舊地，花園成為樹林。昔日菜田同埋農村處處嘅新界，今日就住咗超過300萬人。鍾逸傑認為當年嘅房屋同埋居屋政策值得特區政府深思。
Home ownership and owning your own home, it gives a lot of stability to a society. And I think one of the reasons why we don't have instability in our society today is because of the home ownership scheme of yesterday, and a roof over your head, and can pay the rent and whatever. You don't need a great deal of extra resources to survive in times of hardship. There was plenty of land in the new territories, just as there was plenty of land in the new territories when we did the 10-year housing program.
管新界管道同村民做朋友，鍾逸傑喺新界嘅政績贏得港督尤德嘅信任。1985年，58歲嘅鍾逸傑出任布政司，踏上咗佢仕途嘅高峰。但係佢話冇計較職位嘅高低，唔同官職都係服務市民嘅機會。
It was a challenge, but it was my whole life has been full of challenges. From when I first went to sea at the age of 17 until today. And yesterday was a challenge, and tomorrow will be a challenge, and tonight will be a challenge too. I never had any particular ambition to do what I was asked to do, so I never planned my career. My career was planned for me.
尤德係回歸之前最受歡迎嘅港督之一，任內繼續發展代議政制。不過1986年12月，尤德訪問北京期間突然病逝，震驚香港以至英國。身為港督副手嘅布政司鍾逸傑，亦都臨危受命出任處理港督。
Waking up one morning to find that I was now acting governor, so that was a very sudden and unhappy event, really. But one of the things that happened during that period was, of course, the removal of the walled city in Kowloon, and reaching agreement about the clearance of the walled city and its demolition. And that all went on very, very smoothly.
4個月過後，新一任嘅港督衛奕信抵港，60歲嘅鍾逸傑亦都宣布榮休，結束30年公務員生涯。但係就繼續出任港督嘅特別顧問，又擔任房委會同埋醫管局嘅主席。鍾逸傑喺政府嘅生涯，由元朗防洪到清拆九龍城寨，棘手難題從來都冇停過。但係佢相信無論問題有幾棘手，社會點樣轉變，有一點始終係從政者嘅金科玉律。
I think if you go about things the right way, you can gain their support for what you're doing. It's not easy, and times do change, attitudes are changing. But then in the end, the solutions have to be found, and they are found. So even now, with the express rail in Yunnan, they found solutions.
離開公務員體系嘅鍾逸傑，未有好似眾多嘅殖民地官員一樣返英國，而係留喺香港。究竟點解呢？我哋下一節再講。
I remember when Sir Edward Jude spoke to me and said, "You know, David, when you're 60, you'll have to retire." And immediately I said to Sir Edward, when I retire, Jane and myself, Jane, my wife, and myself, intend to stay in Hong Kong. So we'd already made up our minds. It was never our intention to leave.
1997年6月30號，隨住英國皇家遊艇不列顛尼亞號嘅汽笛聲響起，600萬香港人送別咗末代港督彭定康，同時亦都告別咗100幾年嘅殖民地時代。同好多香港人一樣，鍾逸傑當晚亦都見證住整個主權交接儀式。英國國旗落下，中國國旗同埋香港區旗徐徐升上。身為英國人嘅鍾逸傑依然決心留喺香港。
Well, I'd spent so much of my life working among the people and with the people and for the people, and I'm still doing that now. No turning back.
鍾逸傑喺回歸之前10年已經決定留喺香港終老，即使喺回歸之前，中方邀請佢出任港事顧問。鍾逸傑承受住嚟自英國嘅輿論種種非議，都毫不猶豫就接受邀請，原因只得一個。
So it is helping Hong Kong towards reunification. I was shocked, disappointed that they were so ignorant of the situation that they took that point of view. And you can see that all the way through to 1997 when they talked about the Red Army marching in and so on and so forth. When the communists take over, these were all phrases used by the British and the Western press who failed to understand the real situation. And I understood the situation. And it turned out that I was correct. I never thought that I was not correct.
回歸14年，香港社會急劇變化。回歸之前嘅布政司改名叫做政務司司長，陳方安生、曾蔭權、許仕仁以至唐英年，一任又一任要處理嘅棘手問題似乎越嚟越多。但係鍾逸傑認為今日喺香港做官唔一定比起喺港英年代困難，關鍵係從政者嘅處事手法。佢引用中國老子《道德經》同已故領導人鄧小平嘅名句，寄語官員要凡事謹慎。
If you poke it around too much, it'll break up. So you have to be very careful how you cook a small fish. So you have to govern a kingdom with the same care that you don't cause it to break up. Governing a kingdom is like cooking a small fish. Complementing that is to crossing the river, feeling the stones with your feet.
新一屆行政長官出年誕生，鍾逸傑希望新嘅特首可以優先改革公務員體系同問責制。年過80嘅鍾逸傑依然退而不休，佢離開公務員體系之後投身商界，又係智庫組織工商專業聯會嘅主席，希望利用佢公共行政嘅經驗，繼續為香港出力。呢日佢就同幾個商界會員討論對未來特首工作嘅睇法。鍾逸傑認為新一屆嘅特首唔一定要有多年做官嘅經驗，反而可唔可以做到一個強勢領袖更加重要。
Well, I think we should separate those who have worked in the government from those who will be the leaders of Hong Kong. Chief Executive will have to lead Hong Kong in the right direction and make the right decisions about that direction and get the people to follow the leader. And just as decisions were made in the past, to be persuasive, so that the people are persuaded that he's making the right decisions.
鍾逸傑喺年初開始，亦都為前高官葉劉淑儀創立嘅新民黨出任顧問。鍾逸傑喺上個世紀80年代參與推行代議政制，包括喺立法局引入功能界別，推行首次間接選舉。社會上面一直討論立法會功能界別嘅存廢。鍾逸傑認為實行一人兩票可以係未來出路。
One person, two votes, I should say. I think it can be done. I think the recent changes that will take place in 2012, when the representatives of district councils will elect 10 seats altogether. I think that's the beginning of change.
鍾逸傑為香港作出無數嘅貢獻，02年特區政府亦都向佢頒發大紫荊星章，以示表揚。除咗政界，鍾逸傑亦都喺多個非政府組織擔任公職，包括係世界自然香港基金會同埋女童軍總會。佢亦都係香港外展訓練學校嘅創辦人之一。
The essence of Outward Bound is to show young people especially, that no matter how difficult things appear to be, and to challenge you that with proper training you can overcome the difficulties. They have this experience of overcoming challenges. There's nothing in the years ahead, none of the challenges which they won't be able to overcome.
早年船務學徒嘅刻苦歲月，鍛鍊出鍾逸傑嘅堅強鬥志。佢喺70年代初參與創立外展訓練學校，希望俾香港嘅年青人接受短期訓練，學習野外生活各種求生技能，培養自強不息嘅態度。鍾逸傑認為呢種面對逆境嘅信念，對於今日嘅香港都有一定嘅幫助。
I think that what happens to an individual and his attitude to life, and what happens to a group of individuals, and then to a whole nation, the outward bound spirit, to serve, to strive, and not to yield, not to give way, not to give up, no matter what challenges we face. This is the can-do spirit of Hong Kong.
眼見今日香港發展似乎欠缺方向，好似一艘帆船喺冇風嘅海面上一樣。鍾逸傑認為香港人固然要有危機感，但係同時都要對自己有信心。
A bit too obsessed with comparing ourselves with Singapore, comparing ourselves with Taiwan, comparing ourselves with Shanghai. In fact, if you look around you, you see that Hong Kong is doing remarkably well. And we shouldn't get obsessed by looking at statistics. Let's look at ourselves and the challenges we face and overcome those challenges.
喺香港住咗超過半世紀，仲識得講廣東話，鍾逸傑算唔算地道嘅香港人呢？佢就話冇諗過。
I don't think in those terms really. I'm British, and I live in Hong Kong, and I love Hong Kong, and I love the people of Hong Kong, and I love England as well.
回顧喺香港嘅生涯，鍾逸傑無悔無憾。
Love life wherever you are, and I think we have loved life wherever we've been. And I must say, I've had a most exciting and enjoyable life in Hong Kong. Troublesome at times, troubled at times, troublesome at times, but always full of interest and enjoyment.
行政會議召集人梁振英被視為下屆特首嘅熱門參選人，多年嚟佢都參與唔少特區事務，被指有意參加特首選舉，究竟佢嘅意願係點呢？近期佢積極就社會問題表達意見，梁振英係咪為選舉鋪路，間接表達自己嘅治港理念呢？請留意下一集《香港白人》。